He's not here.
Are we good? The meeting comes to order at 2:05, May 14th. Before roll call, just a quick announcement for our public communications. If you would fill out a card and specify which agenda item you're speaking to. I have some cards already, and I think they're for item A1A for the CIP. And so if you just point it out so we have two separate votes on these items. Okay, got your cards? All right, thank you. Roll call.
Committee members Armenian,
Present.
Avedisian,
Present.
Caribbean, Kazarian is absent, Chair Ramirez.
Here.
The agenda for the May 14, 2018 special meeting of the CDBG Advisory Committee was posted on or before Friday, May 11, 2018 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Because this is a special meeting, we don't have any minutes. Those are delayed to the next meeting.
The next item is item 2, business agenda. At A, action items. At 1 is report regarding release of CDBG funding allocations for fiscal year 2018-19 from Housing and Urban Development, HUD. At A is committee to deliberate and approve additional CIP funding recommendations. And at B is committee to deliberate and approve additional social services funding recommendations.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. Today we are posed with a good problem, additional funds. At the February 23, 2018 meeting, the CDBG Advisory Board approved recommendations from a program planning schedule that had been used in previous years. We had estimated the committee make recommendations based off of current fiscal year's allocation of $1.6 million. Following protocol, a public hearing was scheduled on March 22nd, and then we went to City Council to finalize the recommendation on April 17th. And then we received a surprise on May 1st. The official HUD recommendations came in at 14% above what we had originally anticipated. So from $1.6 million, we are now funded at $1,852,537. This gives us an additional $252,537 in funding for fiscal years 18-19, which requires a special meeting today. So the HUD guidelines and timetable brings us here. 15% of the additional funds will be recommended to public social services in the amount of $37,880. 65% of the additional funds will be recommended to community-sponsored capital improvement projects in the amount of $164,150. Staff does not have any pre-designated city CIP projects to include, so the entirety of that $164,150 is recommended to go to community agencies.
Is recommended?
Is recommended. So the entire 65% of the CIP money will go directly to community agencies today. And $50,507 is the remaining 20% of the additional funding, which automatically goes towards administration and program management. So each audience member has 3 minutes to speak. When we conclude with all the comment cards for CIP, because that's what we will be starting with, CIP, the advisory committee will deliberate and make recommendations. The advisory committee will then hear comment cards from the audience members who wish to speak on public social services. After we conclude with all those comment cards, the committee will deliberate and make recommendations on public social services. Okay.
Okay, are we, do we have any other cards? We'll just wait for her to turn it in.
You can start with the other ones.
Okay, we'll begin with the action items. And we'll start with the deliberations, or do you want to do public comment first?
The public comments
Public
first
comments
for CIP.
Okay. I have 4 cards from the Y. I also have 2 letters communication also from the Y. That they're part of our consideration also. So the first card would be from Yevek Yasayan.
Yes, I am.
Or did you want to go in order?
Can I speak, I'm sorry, may I speak first?
Sure.
Not the
Yeah,
second.
we can do that. I hadn't noticed that you had numbered.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for seeing us today. Good afternoon,
the card.
public. My name is Magda Selen. I am the housing specialist for the YWCA, and I am representing the agency today due to our director was not able to be here due to another meetings outside of the state. And I would just like to add that thank you for allocating a portion for our convert our garage and improve the safety and security of our backyard shelter. However, we're asking you to consider allocating an additional $156,603 in additional for the HUD funding to fully fund our project at total of $249,300. The YWCA is the only entry point for families fleeing domestic violence in Glendale. The YWCA Glendale responds to 100% of those calls from law enforcement agencies. We have a policy to never turn away any victims who are referred by the Glendale Police Department or anybody that calls the hotline. However, over the past couple of years, we have seen that numbers increase drastically, corresponding to the increased response from law enforcement to domestic violence calls. And our statistics show more, the numbers are increasing really drastically. One of the items that we would like to do is converting our garage in our current shelter. That will allow us to increase our shelter capacity, which is the main house, from 10 beds to 16. The garage will become an office and multi-use space for the staffing and services that will allow for the creation of adequate paid space in the shelter to serve more women and children in need. We have commitment to ensuring their emotional safety. Increased funding will allow the YWCA Glendale to renovate and address our backyard that has deteriorated over the years and is no longer functional or safe. For many kids living in the shelter, the transition is not easy. Many had to leave their schools and friends and their familiar surroundings and their environments. So for the YWCA, providing safety and addressing the safety for those families, having a renovation of our backyard will definitely improve and help them, their well-being. So we're asking for the CDBG to help us and reconsider some of these fundings to maybe make the changes. The full funding for this project is vital to ensure an adequate safety and services for victims of domestic violence. We need your support as citizens, as human beings, as mothers, parents. We definitely, from our hearts and from a survivor of domestic violence, I will definitely appreciate from the bottom of my heart if you guys reconsider this. As a community, we definitely need this to make it better for our families and for anybody that comes through the YWCA Glendale. Thank you for your time.
Judith Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. My name is Judith Gonzalez. I'm the case manager for the Glendale YWCA Emergency Shelter. I'm just going to basically echo what my colleague spoke, Magda Salon. It's basically with the increase of domestic violence, the rise to the call on any given day due to the limitation of the beds that we do have, we expect to turn away 2 to 3 women each day. And those are victims that are in need of shelter. With this project, being able to expand from 10 beds to 16 would greatly improve the need in the community for women trying to flee domestic violence, as well as also we are proud to be a trauma-informed facility and be able to provide children with the therapeutic care that they need trying to transition through this crisis that they face. So with that said, we would really appreciate you guys approving this project for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yevek Yasayan?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Yevik Yasen, and I'm a case manager at YWCA Glendale DV Services. And as my colleague spoke up about why we are asking for this additional funding is so that we can improve the needs for our community. On a day-to-day, we see a lot of women and children in crisis, and we have walk-ins that are seeking for services, and the more that we have, the more that we'll be able to better the community and to help those who are in need. For example, today I had somebody walk in crisis who needed emergency shelter, and one of the things that they spoke up was throughout the whole weekend they called seeking for services, and there was nowhere for them to go. And this person was on the streets for the last 3 days because we have very limited space. So the more space that we have, the more we're going to be able to help these women that we see. And I'm telling you, the progress is huge when we see them enter from the time of shelter until the time they transition out, the parents and the children. And when you see something as big as the progress that they make, it's very rewarding, and we know that we've made a difference in their lives. So we are asking you from the bottom of our hearts to really take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Now Suzanne. Is it Slaughter or Slater?
Thank you very much for giving us this time and for considering our project. I'm here to speak to you a little bit about the health.
I'm sorry, please state your name for the record.
Suzanne Slaughter.
Thank you.
Sorry. About the health aspect of our project. When our women and children first come to us, obviously they have been traumatized. They come from an environment of actually worrying about their lives. And research shows that your environment can increase or reduce our stress, which in turn impacts our bodies. What we're seeing, hearing, and experiencing at any moment is changing our mood and affecting how our nervous, endocrine, and immune systems are working. Exposure to nature not only makes us feel better emotionally, but it contributes to our physical well-being, reducing blood pressure, heart rate, muscle tension, and the production of stress hormones. Needless to say, our women and children are in need of a lot of healing. And it also helps us cope with pain because we're genetically programmed to be absorbed in nature. And when we're absorbed in that nature, we are putting our pain on the back burner, basically, and not feeling it as much. One study showed that 90% of those interviewed said their mood improved after spending time outside, changing them from depression, stress, and anxiety to feeling more calm and balanced. One of the most interesting studies that I found was from the Human Environment Research Lab, found that nature connects us to each other and the larger world. Another study at the University of Illinois suggests that residents in Chicago public housing who had trees and greenery reported knowing more people, having stronger feelings of unity with the neighbors, being more concerned with helping and supporting each other, and having stronger feelings of belonging. They had a reduced risk of street crime, lower levels of domestic violence, and a better capacity to cope with life's demands, especially for those who are living in poverty. When participants viewed nature scenes, the parts of their brain associated with empathy and love lit up. When they viewed urban scenes, the parts of their brain associated with fear and anxiety were activated. So please consider how our project, our backyard of our shelter, is not only really important for safety and for our capacity, but for our healing of our clients. Thank you.
Next speaker is Armand Gorgonian.
staff, Armand Gorgorian from Home Management. Previously, when we were deliberating the original proposals that we had, I had the impression that the council, the committee accepted that the two projects that we had for two different campuses that for the HVAC were important and necessary, but because there was no funds available, so we didn't get approved for those two projects. Now that it's approved, then now that there's additional fund, I respectfully request to look into those because we are in a very bad shape. Since the day that I was here and presented my proposals, one of our biggest air conditioning units has already gone dead, completely dead, and it's very difficult to operate without that. So I understand that you will not be able to fund everything that we have asked, but please consider that and somehow, as much as you think it's available, so that we can be able to have a healthier space there. Thank you.
Next speaker is Irene Bordon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Irene Bordon. I'm the president of the Adventist Health Glendale Foundation. First, I'd like to thank all of you for the generous funding that you provided, the $60,000 for our windows that were going to be replaced in our senior wellness center. Now it's actually a community services building that's kind of working as a gym. We have completed a lot of the ADA requirements, and so the senior population has already moved back in and they're enjoying yoga classes and all kinds of other programs. I'm here to respectfully request the remaining $60,915 that would be required to complete the entire project. The $60,000 that we were approved for, we kind of reduced the scope of the project so that our top priorities were the six arched windows in the gymnasium area. That's where the seniors gather. That's where they do all of their work. There are still several windows all around the building and in some of the office areas and in some of the restrooms, which we're putting on hold because we need to prioritize the arched windows within the gymnasium. So we would like to, have this considered so that we can complete the project in its entirety. Thank you.
We have another speaker, is Sandra Yanis.
Good afternoon, Council. Sandra Yanez with Catholic Charities. This council has always been an incredible blessing to our organization. Loaves and Fishes here in the city. We are here serving those that are most, that we believe that are most in need and poverty. And, people think of us as just a food pantry, but the reality, especially for the city, is that we do much more than that. We are providing case management, and our case management, includes everything from, utility assistance and rental assistance and, immigration services. We kind of run the gamut as far as, our referral service. And case management for us is terribly important. We unfortunately, over the last handful of years, have only been able to have we have one program coordinator and then one case manager who oversees much of the case management, particularly for the Spanish-speaking population, as well as many other languages that we serve. At least 8 other languages that we serve, 9 other languages that we serve. So, at this point in time, we are requesting that we up that case management hours. We have a very limited amount of hours for one of our case managers, and it's less than about 12% of her time is allocated to this program. And we have people coming in all day, every day, and the reality for us is that we can't see everybody every day because we don't have enough hours to see that, to see all of our individuals. So at this point in time, we are requesting $6,000 more just to give extra hours to that case manager who is unable to be there. And as much as we try to be there, we have one coordinator who is there full-time and actually does quite a bit, even after hours. But that's our request for this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. If I may,
Yes, please.
you just asked for $6,000?
Right.
Just want to make sure I heard it correctly. Thank you.
Thank you.
What I was going to do is kind of divide them and do our deliberation before we took the other one, but we only had the one person, so we're good.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you so much. In that case, I'll ask for,
Leslie, have
how
any-
much is that? $37,000?
Not very much, that's for sure. Okay. Okay, any other comments? All right, we close those, public comment closed, and we can begin our deliberations.
I have a variety of questions for some of the speakers. I thought I would hold them till the end, if possible.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'd like to start with Glendale Adventist, if I could ask you a few questions. Thank you. So, if I'm remembering correctly, as you mentioned, the additional funds in this entire proposal is for windows throughout the facility, correct?
Yes.
Can you refresh our memory in terms of what are the exact programs that you run through this facility for which you need to change the windows in order to make those programs?
It's a variety of physical wellness classes and programs like yoga, chair yoga, and we just started a balance program for fall prevention in seniors. We also provide some small support groups for the caregivers and for the seniors in that room.
Could you elaborate on that?
Pardon?
Could you elaborate on that? I
Sure.
don't quite understand.
We have some mental health kinds of support groups for seniors, anti-depression types of topics for them. We'll oftentimes have a physician come in and actually do and facilitate some programs.
It's like educational programs?
Pardon?
These are educational
Yes, they are.
programs?
Yes, and they're all free, yes.
Okay. And on these physical wellness programs, you have multiple programs running right now?
Yes. We've got yoga, we've got balance, we've got, sorry, the program coordinator's not here, but I think we also have blood pressure, well, that's more of an education program, but we have blood pressure reduction types of education programs.
And I'm assuming the yoga and the balance that uses the gym?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And I know we've had this back and forth with Glendale Adventist before when we were going through the overall. It's still unclear to me how many of the actual people who use the facility are technically, qualify in terms of low income, and how the windows, make a direct impact on the programs themselves. In other words, it seems to me that as long as you have windows, that the programs can still run.
Yes.
Even though the lighting, I get the whole thing about the lighting and all that and making it a more pleasant facility. But obviously we're trying to make a determination here on need.
Right.
And so I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, right now the windows, several of them are broken. The seals aren't very good. So during the summer months, it gets very, very hot. And in the winter months, it gets very, very cold. So it seems like something that might be kind of an inconvenience to a lot of people. But when you're a senior, the temperature fluctuations are very hard on them. So we have actually readjusted a lot of the programming just to help accommodate for that. And it's just not energy efficient either.
Okay.
Yes.
That's all I had for Adventist. I don't know if anyone else had any questions for them while they're up.
No.
I just wanted to ask, I think we don't have a historic resource directory yet, but they're putting one together. I personally think it qualifies. And I think the windows may be exempt because they don't face the street, but I'm not sure how they handle the resources. Have you checked into that with the city? How they would look into a window replacement, because I know that's something that absolutely we just
I'm not sure. Do you know if we've checked into city funding for the window replacement?
Window replacement is part of the, when you're considering a historic resource.
Oh, it's not a
part of the integrity of the building. and-
Right. I don't believe that the building is considered a historic building, technically.
It's not a historic building, I know, because we're putting together a resource right now that
Oh,
I know of.
yes.
I'm just thinking in the future.
Yes.
So I just had
All right,
was
thank you.
wondering if it's something that maybe you had paid attention to. 'Cause-
No, it's not a historic building.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
you want to,
I had questions for YWCA too.
okay.
Thank you.
Any others
Someone,
for
I
Adventist?
don't know who wants to
No?
speak.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Can you, so currently, I think the shelter has 10 beds, correct?
Correct.
And your project would increase it to 16 beds?
Correct.
So can you tell me, what's the average duration where someone spends time in the shelter?
45 days, and based on that, we can extend it week and a week, but probably to 60 days. And that's basically just to help them, get a little bit better on their feet emotionally with case management, counseling services, etc.
Okay, so clearly, it seems to me that even 16 beds is not going to solve the problem, right? I mean, the problem is bigger than the solution.
Yes,
Correct.
but it will be a little bit, giving the opportunity to more families to be able to secure something,
Sure. So here's my question, just
Yes.
so I can understand the bigger problem that we're trying to make a dent in through
Yes.
this project, is what would you do, how would you define the larger problem? What, if you had unlimited money, how many beds would you have in such a facility?
That's an amazing question, and thank you for asking that. Like I mentioned at the beginning in my introduction, I am the new housing specialist for the YWCA. My vision is to increase, hopefully, not only 16, but possibly, we have a good size of land that with funding and money and the community assistance, probably to have maybe 30 in a shelter. That's my vision. And then at the same token, work with, that's my long-term vision, but work with transitional housing and eventually permanent housing, which is, is the problem in a bigger capacity, but at least to help. If we, having 10 right now, and like you heard one of my coworkers, Yavik, we had a client that was in the streets for a few days. And, the system, she was bouncing from different, cities, places, nowhere to go. Somebody had the heart to, and was so kind to bring her to our center. So we were able to admit her. But just because we had another client exiting, we were able to do that. But if we have an extension of beds, say, I know 16 is not a big number, but at least we will be able to, help one or two more families, that instead of being on the street, they can be there.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing with the
Right.
merits of the project. I mean, every bed counts. That's not, so I'm not questioning that.
Right.
What I'm trying to understand is what's the larger problem that we should be solving toward, right? Today, it might be funding for going from 10 to 16, but at the end of the day, I'm not as close to it as you are, as your organization is, so it's helpful to understand what's the larger problem. What would be the solution if we had unlimited funds so that we can start thinking about the longer term?
Probably building more, probably 1 to 2 more shelters, and definitely transitional housing.
Okay, so you're thinking with 30, if we had 30 today, that would be, obviously, more would seem better, but I don't have the definition of the problem like
Right.
you do. If with 30 solve your problem in terms of what the flow you see today of people needing it,
You
or is it
don't-
100?
You're talking about like 30 families?
No, I'm talking about beds. So if I'm telling you, if I was going to write you a check, unlimited check,
Yes.
what is your need today total to really deal with the problem that you're seeing on the ground?
I would say 50,
50?
an average, yes.
So
But it's a problem that we don't have a limit, put it like that. So you can say, I write you a check for, to fund 50 beds, but, domestic violence is increasing in like, we don't have a particular number for it. Now, men are being experiencing more domestic violence. So if I tell you 30, 50 will solve the problem within 3 months, I'll probably be, not being accurate because the numbers keep growing and growing.
Well, this is why, let me just make a comment. What would be helpful to this sort of body, because we're trying to make a meaningful long-term impact with the limited money we have, it would behoove, I think, the YWCA, if you are the primary domestic violence shelter, to have a strategic vision of what are the solutions to the bigger problem. What is the overall need, and then where do these projects fall in the incremental move toward fulfilling that larger vision? Just a thought. I have a second question too,
Yes.
which is, so this body also appropriated money for the other center that the YWCA runs in terms of all the fire safety stuff to renovate that building. And then you've got this other domestic violence shelter, which is a whole separate project.
Correct.
When you add the two things together, it's close to, if we were to fully fund, you'd be looking at $500,000 of capital project to manage.
Right.
Who within the YWCA board or staff is going to be the project manager to make sure both projects kind of get done? Because the other project hasn't really started from what I understand.
Right. Did you want to add? Oh.
Hello, committee members. My name is T.C. Kim. I actually belong to a larger Los Angeles County Domestic Violence Council and LA City's DV Task Force, so I actually have an answer for you. There are about 55 to 60 domestic violence shelters throughout LA County. In the last 5 years or so, we lost about 200 shelter beds. And even with those 200 shelter beds, every year by the National NOVA and that's National Organization for Victim Assistance, and also with the DB organization throughout the nation, we do what's called the DB census. And from the census, we designate one day, usually in September, and we do a survey how many people are in need of the shelter service and they're not getting it. They're over 5,000. That gives you an idea that even with those 200 shelter beds, we're still in need more shelter beds.
Thank you for that answer. That had to do with the previous question, so I appreciate that. I still think from a YWCA perspective, since you are a piece of the larger puzzle,
Yes.
it would be helpful for this body to know where the YWCA would like to take their shelter operation in terms of longer term aspect. I'm not saying YWCA is going to solve the entire problem by themselves. Obviously, it's much bigger than just Glendale, but I think it would help to know that. But going back to my last question had to do with how's YWCA staff or board going to manage two different capital projects for a total of $500,000 to make sure that they are done on time and in a cost-effective manner? Because the other project that we funded last funding cycle, from what I understand, hasn't got, I don't know, staff can confirm, hasn't really started yet, right?
Madam Chair and committee members, we just actually finished bidding process for the Lexington building, which is the fire sprinkler and ADA compliance, and we're in process of working through. We received one bid, and we're working with the agency, the board, and the executive director to negotiate and to start the project. Currently, YWCA has a architect on board, which oversees the project from the technical aspect of it. Tara Peterson, the executive director, will be working with the city to manage and move forward with completing that project. We have also
That's the Lexington project.
Lexington, and we also have two staff from their maintenance department who will be working conjointly with us and the contractors to complete the project. We are anticipating to complete the project mid-September. Should everything go through the approval and start the project, I would say first to second week of June. We are anticipating to finish by mid-September.
Okay. So what about the domestic violence shelter? Who's going to manage that?
Well, we have the DV Domestic Violence Director, which is Ms. Elizabeth. Due to family circumstances, she was not able to be here. We expected for her to be here, but she was not able to. but she will be running that program, and that's why we have Judy Gonzalez. She's the main case manager at the shelter as well. So I could say that both in combination will be probably attending that with the executive director.
In terms of project managing the construction.
Oh, that will be the executive director, Tara Peterson.
So Tara Peterson's going to be running 2 different capital projects.
We will be well finished by this project by, again,
Before
by...
the other one starts.
Yes, because this project will, by the time we go through the agreement process with the agencies in July, the earliest we could start this project, I would assume by the time we come out of the bidding, it will be beginning of October.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
I'd just like to speak a moment, Suzanne Slaughter, about, speak to some of the questions that you asked. First of all, we have a strong ED, which is Tara Peterson, and we also have a very strong board, and we meet as many times as we need to meet, and we also hire consultants, any consultants that we need to make sure that we are progressing the way we should be progressing and being very efficient in the way that we're using the funds. So that's one comment that I have. The other one is about what you're saying the larger problem is, which is huge. It's a huge problem, and you're right. We can't solve it all. But what we want to do is use the resources that we have already. And we know that one of the issues with the shelter is making sure that we get them in, we save a life. I mean, there's nothing bigger than that, saving a life, or lives of children. I mean, we're hearing it every day, we're reading it in the news, and it just boils me to be able to think about women and children, families being totally disintegrated. So we're doing that. We're also working on the other side in that we are working with prevention, with the schools, with helping children understand what a healthy relationship is. So we're trying to come at it from both sides. As far as our resources, I'm so glad that you mentioned this because we have a wonderful piece of property. And as you know, our building is getting very old. It's been, we put Band-Aids on it and Band-Aids on it and Band-Aids on it to keep it safe and to continue running the programs that we have there. We just recently closed our pool, which we found to be unsafe, and our strategic plan is in process, and we know that it's not something that is within our mission right now. We are in terrible need of parking. We get tickets if we park at Whole Foods, so we are in terrible need of parking. But yet we have a wonderful asset there. So part of our strategic plan is working on how to best use that asset. Should we work on, you have to understand there's 3 buildings there. There's a historical building, there's another building, and then another building. And I understand our first building has historical value. So we would need to keep that, maybe do some maintenance on it or some remodeling on it. But we actually could get rid of 2 of the buildings there, and we could put up low-income housing. And we could work with them on some kind of system where we would also have some domestic violence beds. So we're still working on that, but I just want you to know that that is in our plan.
You had questions?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. One of them mentioned a person was looking for a bed for a few days before. So how does that work? I mean, they have a phone number, somebody tells them, they Google you guys. I mean, how would that person find you? And if not, why it took so many days? Or what do? You tell them, don't come, I don't have a place? I mean, how the process goes as far as...
Thank you for your question. We don't turn anybody down, so clearly we didn't get the phone call. However, they search for it online or they use 211, and then they call seeking for services, asking if there's emergency shelters. Or what will happen is most of the time when we get a shelter.
Every morning, the shelter runs a hotline as well. The hotline receives a list of 30 to 40 emergency shelters within LA County, stating which one has beds and which one doesn't. people will call at all times. It's a 24-hour, 7 days a week hotline. So they will call and check in and see if we have space. If we have space, we're able to provide it to them. If we don't, unfortunately, we'll just give them referrals to other shelters in the area or close by. If they can receive other services that we think is beneficial to them, we will direct them back to the main agency, the Y, for case management, support group, parenting, legal help, whatever it is that we can help. But unfortunately, if our shelter is full, it is at capacity.
And next question is, you say average of 60 days to get them out. That's an average. Where do you find them? Where do you put them? How far apart? How do you find those locations? How much of a resource you have to find them locations?
We are thankful to have Magda back on board with us this year. As a housing specialist, she's able to focus solely on the housing problem. And that consists of trying to get them placed in transitional housing, permanent housing, whatever means it is to get them out of the shelter. But she can speak more to that.
I'm back here, I'm sorry. So the transition is after the shelter, the goal is to ensure that the families are safe. That's number one. Number two, you have a lot of challenges with every particular client. Some of them are undocumented, some are monolingual, some have, because of the situation that they happen in their lives or with their partner, they're not financially stable. They don't have financial literacy of what, they were having the control from the spouses, so they have no money, they have no resources, no families. So it's really hard to place one of those clients into transitional. Right now, our transitional shelters are very limited. And as you can hear in the news, like, we're discussing now, it's everything due to funding. So it's no more money, but we have a lot of homeless people in LA County. So for me, it's my resources, my networks. I'm a neighbor, I live in Burbank, and I was homeless at one point in my life. And that, I guess, gave me the push to go around and knock on doors, meeting landlords, talking to people. Hey, you know what? I work for this particular agency. I need your assistance. Do something good for the community. And that's what I've been able to place clients in permanent housing, low-income housing. It's a lot of knocking doors because a lot of people don't want to take the chance or the risk to house one of those families. But because Glendale is such a rich city in the sense of the population that we have, the community, we are a family. That's how I see it. That's what I love working here and helping the clients, making a difference in their lives. So transitioning them from shelter, say the 45-day pass, and then I'm not able to secure transitional housing. That's when a lot of, knocking doors and making phone calls and, looking into different organizations so I can partner with so we can help that particular family. And then at the same time, encouraging the client with case management, making sure that they have probably better jobs, they have better education, so they can, don't go back into the same square, from square one where they started. So it's a lot of knocking doors, sometimes begging for money, with different organizations. Hey, I need your help. When we have HUD funding, when we have, Measure H funding, it's just like trying to help those that really need it. And like I said, I have the passion for it because I was one at one point in my life. And, I really bless you guys and hope that you never have to go through it or have a family member through it because it's really hard. And if you don't have the support system out there, you feel like, you hit bottom and you don't know where to go. So I really appreciate you guys and hopefully, a little bit of this touches your heart and reconsidering this additional funding.
One last question. Yes. Now that you're converting the garage, or the plan is,
yes.
Is this pretty much cap on your property to adding beds, or there are future possibilities or for addition to the property, back house, I don't know, whatever.
We have a big land, so it can definitely be, later on with the capital, we can definitely increase it
I
to
mean, have you
maybe.
looked into this, or you're just guessing?
No, we do. We
Okay.
have it, yes.
So there is room to expand at the same
Absolutely,
location?
absolutely.
Do you know how
Yes.
many beds roughly?
Not really, to be honest, because I'm not in charge of that particular
Okay,
project.
that's fine.
But
But you have
definitely,
room, you have done your research, there's more room to add in the same
it's a
location?
lot of room to add, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
They ask the hard questions.
Very
I had
good.
one question for a home amendment, if possible.
Just let me check in on the conversion with the Y. If you could come up. I had a question on the conversion with the Y, whoever. Yeah.
Yes.
Did, the conversion is already in progress. How many beds can it accommodate?
So with the actual funding that we're asking for you guys to fund right now, we have a garage that can be converted into offices. Like right now in the main house, we have 2 offices that can be put into, so we can add the beds in those 2 offices and move the actual offices that it's right now into the garage. So that way we will have the main house as the primary house for shelter and the garage as offices for the staff.
And so how many beds would that accommodate?
16? Probably 16 with an additional maybe emergency bed.
So it would minimal, pretty
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything,
Home amendment.
we're gonna go for it. Did we have, this is the last one of CIPs, right?
Mr. Gregorian, you mentioned, I think in your comment, if I heard you correctly, that one of your air conditioning units, since our last meeting, has failed?
Yes,
Can you define that? It's failed as in you needed
Failed
to
as
repair
in-
it, or failed as in dead?
dead.
So what are you doing about it?
Unfortunately, Committee Member Armenian, regardless of what you decide today, I am not sure that we can wait for that unit because, as Mrs. Vananian explained, by the time the contract is signed, by the time we go prepare bid package and all that stuff, it's October. So now are the hot dates. We have small fans that we put there next to the receptionist and the people that are coming and going. So that is dead completely. There's nothing we can do with it.
And which campus is that on?
That is on 3347 main campus.
So when you introduced your proposal for main campus, which was originally requested funding was $68,528, it was for those units?
That was one of them. Total of 7 units.
Okay, but so
Because-
of the 7 units, one has failed?
One is completely dead, and the others, they will follow that one pretty soon because these are, to make you understand this, these are probably 30, 35, 40-year-old units. We have been there 20 years. We haven't added anything, but, and then when they are old, the cost of maintaining them is a lot.
So the one that you're going to replace right away because you have to.
We have to.
Is one of the 7.
Yeah.
If we were to consider any funding for the main campus one, which we did not allocate any money to this year, it would be for the other 6. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
And are the other 6, do they serve the facility in a way that it's not like the facility is without air conditioning, it's just not with its optimum?
Yes and no. Yes and no, because some of them, they barely work. We just hear the voice, the sound of it. But some of them are completely going to die pretty soon. Some of them, we can live with it.
But it's not like the facility has 0 air conditioning, is that correct?
That specific area is 0 air conditioning.
Which is what area?
The one that I said the air conditioning has died.
I know, what area of the facility does that serve?
That is 2nd floor on the main campus.
So offices?
Not the offices, the main entrance lawn.
And what activities are held in that area?
On Sundays, because we don't have any park anymore to have our scouting activities. Once in a blue moon, we are able to go there to the Sunday activities, scout activities at our center. So that area is maybe about 50 scouts at the same time.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
No questions.
No questions, no questions. I don't have any either.
Thank you.
So that's the last questions on this. We can begin the deliberations on this. What's your pleasure? You want to start? You want to start?
Doesn't matter, sure. Well, obviously, first, as we started the day, thank you for getting these funds from HUD. So this was great. No matter who gets what, it's something, and we're happy to give it away. So I'm going to start with that. Obviously, it's a tough decisions, but not necessarily because of the programs. It's just overall, the funds, no matter what we do, is not large enough. Is not enough, no matter how much we get. And the shortage and the second phase, obviously, it's smaller than the first phase, so even more difficult to spread it out. And I've been thinking about it ever since. I've done so many Excels, and then I scratched it, do it again, and then gone to the boards. And at the end of the day, it's really hard. But overall, no matter what we do, in the end of the day, we want all the programs to succeed, all the agencies to succeed to their best. And hopefully, you guys, my main thing is don't count on HUD only or any other fundings you get, because any day, as we see, we got more this year, it could be less next year. And you don't want to be without air conditioning next year, or without any beds, or without anything. So, it's something that definitely urge you guys to definitely focus and try to get your own fundings and let this be the icing on the cake, as they call it. But hopefully me and my colleagues will come to a resolution to everybody be happy today. So.
Like my colleague said, yes, it's a good problem to have and a sad problem to have, because not enough money, no matter how we look at it. And somebody's going to go home today heartbroken or half heartbroken because they didn't get the funding they were expecting. It's all of their programs. I've been in Hawaii. I have volunteered to a certain level in Hawaii, and I've seen the facilities, especially the front building and the office and the hall. It's really, I know you guys do a tremendous good job, and with what level of secrecy and what level of security that you have to make sure your clients are served right, and their privacy, they're comfortable, and all that goes with it. It's heartbreaking that even situations like this happen to this day, and that's a sad story, no matter how we look at it. I wish I could say, let's just give it all and make that happen, but I don't know what my colleagues are thinking and where we're going to go from here. But I think whatever it takes, we'll help out as much as we possibly can, and maybe with your outside sources, you can get more. I don't have any suggestions on the numbers. I don't know if anyone want to start that or not. I think why is the major issue here?
I won't repeat, I agree with my colleagues, so I won't bother repeating those messages, other than to say, first of all, want to thank everyone that came out to express your points of view. Your input and your voicing your opinions is very important to us and helps in the decision-making process, even though we may not be able to make the decisions that everyone wants. So I want everyone to know how much we appreciate you coming out to express your points of view, as well as those who took the time to write to us as well, because we've had a few emails as well. So thank you for that in terms of participating in the process. Second part I'll say is I view our job is not just to take obviously today's comments, but also go back to our process that we went through just a couple months ago with the extensive deliberations and studies that we did on our own in terms of the merits of each project in trying to come up with the best possible prioritization for the limited amounts of funds that we have. All the causes that you serve and all the way you serve the community, they are all equally important. It's just a matter of trying to do some sort of prioritization where we can make the maximum amount of impact with the limited amount of dollars that we have. And it's not about, obviously the easiest thing is just to take the amount and divide it 5, 6, 7, 8 ways and say, everyone, here's an extra chunk of money. But that's not a prudent way to make a difference in the community. It's actually the easier way, but the harder way is actually the right way, which is to try and prioritize some funds and concentrate some funds so that you can make some progress in one direction, even though, unfortunately, it may be at the expense of some other things that might have to wait a year for the next round of funding. At least that's my philosophy, and I believe, my colleagues probably subscribe to that same philosophy, because that's how we've tried to do it instead of just making, equal amounts across the board. So I want to thank you in advance for your understanding for whatever decisions we as a commission come up with today. And please know that please don't take any of our decisions personally or in any way reflecting the important work that you do. That is not what is meant by the decisions that we make today. We're just trying to make the maximum impact in those areas where we can. And we'll continue trying to make the kind of impact that we're trying to make with these funds, which is why I ask the types of questions I ask about strategic planning, looking forward, what's the bigger problems that we're trying to solve to, so that it's not just incrementally more, because we would like to hear about those sorts of bigger visions. I think that helps us in our decision-making process, because most of the time these sorts of projects many of you have been coming over each year, and so it helps us have a vision as to what's the eventual outcome we're trying to get to, not just be a body that just divides up a pot of money each time. So thank you.
Well said. The way I look at it, and I think you covered everything very, very well, going back to the CDBG funds must be used for activities which meet urgent community needs and when conditions may pose an immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community. So that's pretty clear to me where I generally prioritize or try to prioritize. And so as I look at the funding that we did and the discussions that we had in the past and the needs and the input from the public here today, I see the why as a need that's very clearly in place, not only in this community, but in every community, and that we have come upon some resources that we can address it. And so that would be my choice. And also, if we can add to the Adventist project, I would add to that too, because to me, those are the two projects that have exhibited the most urgent need, and which that's what we're called to fund. And so that's where I stand very clearly. Okay? Anything else?
No, I mean, if we're going to start talking about where the money goes, I agree with you, Madam Chair, about the YWCA. I think there's an opportunity here to make a measurable difference and not drag on the project for too long, because I think the amount of money that we allocated compared to what the need of the project is there's a pretty big shortfall. So I do agree with some sort of trying to use a good amount of this money to try and make them whole, though I don't know that we'd make it 100% whole. In terms of the second part of your general comment, I am concerned about the air conditioning situation. I think that makes a facility difficult to use in the heat of the summer, and think summers are only getting hotter. So I kind of view that a little bit higher priority than the Adventist health center, although we did allocate home and some money for the other campus. I believe the North Campus is what we funded for HVAC purposes. Or no, we didn't do any
We
HVAC,
didn't
we
do
just
HVAC,
did
we did
security.
cameras, yeah.
The security
Okay.
cameras.
Yeah, we just did security cameras, 100% though. So to me, I'm in a little bit of a dilemma between Adventists. I completely understand the importance of windows. I have aging parents myself. I completely understand how little variations in temperature make a big difference for our senior population. So I'm not trying to minimize that in any way, but at the end of the day, it doesn't sound like the facility is completely unusable in its current state, though not optimal. If we have air conditioning issues, that to me starts to make it difficult for a facility to be used, although still not 100% clear on what part of the facility does have air conditioning, what part of the facility does not have air conditioning, and that sort of differentiation. So that's my general comment.
Want to add to that?
If I may, I'm just going to go ahead and start and maybe giving you suggestions for the numbers, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I think from the funds that we have, 164,150, I would say to make Y a little bit put them in a little bit in a better shape, then they can probably somehow complete it with this additional funds. I would say probably somewhere around $125,000 to go to the Y of the 164,000.
Would you like me to put it?
If we,
Yeah, can we start
could
putting
we-
numbers
yeah.
in so we can see it? Thank you.
Yeah. We would maybe highlight them so we know we're not confusing them with the current numbers.
You want me to highlight the recommendation?
The recommendations,
additional number?
yes.
Yeah, additional. We're going to test your Excel skills.
There you go.
And then, let's see, let me do my calculation. Okay, and then I guess I will leave the balance of the 39,000 from that to go to the HVAC, which I know those kids done, through the summer, they will have issues with no air conditioning. If they can get this process going,
The North Campus or the main campus?
the main campus.
Which is where the unit failed.
Yeah, that's the one that the one unit is dead and the rest of it, it's on its way.
So there are 7 units, as Mr. Gregorian mentioned, one of which failed that they're going to replace themselves because they won't. This money wouldn't in theory get to them in time if we decided that. So the 39,000 would be for, because the 68,000 requested was for 7 units. They're going to do one of them. So I don't know if we were just average out per unit divided by
9,000
6,
per unit.
9,000 per unit. So that gets them how much? How many units? The 39.
39 would be about 4 units.
What is it per unit?
4 out of 7, so.
That's fine, 4 units.
If the average is about 9,000, so about 4 units.
So they would have to either deprioritize which units they do, right? Or come up with the shortfall and do all of them.
Yeah, I think that would be their problem, their issue, how to manage it. They just got to manage it how that they can.
So
Unfortunately,
it would be for funding for 4 out of the 7 units in main campus is what it comes down to, because they're handling one, and then they'd have to figure out what to do with the others.
I think in the end of the day,
They're not all failing. I mean, they're not in
Right.
good shape, but they're not all failing.
I think number of units, whether it's North Campus or the main campus, or how many, obviously the numbers they allocated is for HVAC only. So I was thinking to help the Y, I would push the HVAC and put the 32,000 for the North Campus. So that would give them 100% funding at least.
For one, that's a good point.
And since they're gonna fix that one anyway without our funding, and no matter if they fix the main campus, the North Campus could go down. So there's really no guarantee which campus will remain. So, but if we do 32,000 at the North Campus, that would be 100% done. At least in their mind, they know that they're done. There's only focus on one campus. And Y gets the difference, which is, another 7,000 or so. So every penny goes to the Y, I think, more. So I think 131,716 to Y. I just did a rough number, not to be exact. So 131,716 goes to Y.
You want me to
Do the
to the North
32.
Campus instead?
Yeah, 232, 434 to the North Campus.
So you're saying, sorry, 137,000?
And then the difference, 131,716
North Campus gets the full funding, and then the balance, whatever it's left, that's
goes to the Y. So Y gets more chunk. So based on my estimate, Y is only short 24,887, which is not a big number. It's a small number. And if you, I'm sure you can manage 24,000 to get 100% of your
24,887.
right to get 100% of your own project, and I think Homington will be done with one campus fully, and then one they're building, and the rest of the HVAC, it's hopefully you guys fix it before next year.
How many units are in the North Campus? Do you guys remember?
I don't. I looked at it, but in North Campus, how many total?
Or North Campus, the 32,434.
So if it's an average 9 units, 9,000 units, about 3.5
Not necessarily
units.
depending
That
on
is
the
going,
size.
depending on
Okay,
how many
anyway.
units they have.
The point, I think,
You come
Anyway.
to the podium, please.
can you come to the podium, please?
Yes, 9 total.
There are 9 units there. We're applying for 4 of them.
4 out of 9 in North Campus.
Okay.
Okay, so if it's 30.
That would cover.
The North Campus is which one? The Los
Glendale.
Angeles one or
Glendale.
Glendale?
That's the Glendale. See, that, I made sure I said that for, just to
Yeah,
be.
you saved it for me.
That's right.
I was sure I jumped in.
No, so I covered that
He's figured
before.
you out finally after all these years.
It's not been repeating it.
Just wanted to make sure our chair is happy, so.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. But the other ones are newer, the 4, you said total of 9.
Total of 9, 4 of them we need to replace.
The other 5, how old are they?
Yeah. It's a question that I have to study.
Okay, that's fine. I think I have it, last time we looked into it. That's my recommendation, it's up to you guys if, I want to keep it in Glendale, so.
I like,
You want to keep it in Glendale?
I'll make the motion. I think I like the number. I'll make the motion.
I can,
Oh, I second your motion, actually. Correction. I second your motion.
Would you like me to read out the numbers or?
Yeah,
Sure.
for
Yes,
the record.
Okay. So the motion is to allocate the funding as follows. YWCA of Glendale Sunrise Village Emergency Shelter Garage Conversion and Backyard Renovation for a total of $224,413. Glendale Youth Center Solar Panel Installation, $219,537. Adventist Health Glendale Live Well Senior Center, $65,000. Main Campus Gym Divider Hominid Men Glendale Ararat Chapter, $26,287. $26,287, yes, thank you. Main Campus HVAC Hominid Men Glendale Ararat Chapter, 0. Main Campus Security Camera Hominid Men Glendale Ararat Chapter, $38,209. North Campus Security Cameras Hominid Men Glendale Ararat Chapter, $47,950. North Campus HVAC Hominid Men Glendale Ararat Chapter, $32,434.
We have a
And
motion
so I can take
and a
roll call.
second.
Committee members, Armenian,
Yes.
Avedisian,
Yes.
Gribian,
Yes.
Kazarian is absent, Chair Ramirez.
No.
Okay. Motion carries.
Motion carries, what? 3-1?
3-1.
Okay, next item. And the item, I think I have an additional card on the social services funding from Kaina. I can't get your name here.
Good afternoon. I'm Karina Gregorian with the Glendale Youth Alliance. For the past 25 years, we've been providing employment services to at-risk youth. As you may recall, we have way more applications than the number of slots that we can serve annually. So with additional funds, I'm kindly requesting that you consider the gap from our original proposal to what was recommended, which is $14,500. If you would consider that, we would greatly appreciate it.
And what organization was that?
Glendale Youth Alliance, the youth employment programs. Yeah.
Anything else? Any questions?
Any questions?
We're
good.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
We're pretty familiar with the organization. No more cards?
We're ready for
Oh, wow.
deliberations. You want to start with you, or you want to wait till the end?
Oh, wait.
Then I'll
Go
start,
first,
that's
yeah.
fine. As my colleague said earlier, dividing it to 7, 8 people, it's the easy way, but we don't want to take the easy route, that's why we're here, right? So I did my own being into the finances. Obviously, number one, I considered each program, what the program offers, all the details. So it's about the program first. But after going through the programs being fair, but fair to the sense of what's fair, I wanted to keep the numbers the same because I'm a number guy in the end of the day. That's what I do for a living. So I added a column that you guys don't see up there, but I have one here. I have 2 of them actually, additional columns here. So I had to go based on percentage of the increases from annual one year to another year. That gives me a direction of each program, how much they're enhancing or versus how much more better programs. That why one program could go up 78%, one program can go up 55%, another program go only 25%. So that tells me a need. But yet, I didn't want to give the increase based on the percentages that they went up. That's not fair also. So I want to keep the percentage of how much I allocate on each one to be fair. So based on that, I kept it somewhere between, well, some were already up there, very short fall off to be 100%. Maybe $1,000 would have made them 100%. So to do that, I kept them from anywhere from 75% average funding for each program. So based on those numbers I spread it out to all 8 agencies. So if you guys want me to put some numbers up and then you guys can change, or you want to deliberate,
Go ahead.
and
Yeah.
it's up to you guys. You want to deliberate first and then?
No, I might
go
just
ahead.
have a question, so just to understand what you're saying. You took you did it proportionally
Right.
based on the
Programs, obviously.
program total, right?
Right.
Requested, and then percentage of shortfall?
No, it's a combination of stuff, like how much of an increase they had from 17 to 18.
Okay.
That told me, for example, there were some programs, if you don't fund them all of it, they can't really move forward. It's just money sitting there. Some programs, they could, whatever you give me, I use as much. So I had to consider all that combination. But one of them, yes, increased, for example, fair housing, they increased 55% from the year before. That was one of the largest increases for a program. So that tells me maybe they have a program that, and I'll read the details, versus the other ones, for example, Glendale Youth, I think 24% increase. So the increase was less than the year before. So that's why I did some numbers to be fair, and at the end of the day, the shortfalls to be fair also, not to one be too short versus the other one, to have a balance. If you guys want, I can put some numbers up and then we can do that if, Madam Chair, you're okay with this? So, community outreach, I'll put $7,059.
I'm sorry, what?
ARS.
7059. Fair housing, 3,500. All for Health, 2,000. Let's see, Ascensia, 2,000. CASP, 10,085, 10,085. Catholic Charities, I think I have it at 6,000, but for now I put 8,649, 8,649. And Salvation Army, 2,000. And Glendale Youth Alliance, 4,500. Am I over?
Yes.
Yeah, so drop the Catholic Charity to 6,000. So I had the right number first. Am I still over or short?
736 remaining.
Then add the Catholic Charities, 6,736. There we go. By doing this, some of them, can you highlight the 100%? I think it's only Salvation Army is 100%, if I'm not mistaken. Which was only the one below that, the line below that.
I'm sorry?
Salvation Army.
Salvation, I'm sorry.
Because it was only 2,000 shortfall to be 100%. So, but the rest of them, the column that you guys don't have, all the shortfalls are within 75 to 80% of what they asked for.
Meaning,
Everyone's
if you
short
allocate
15 to
these
25.
additional funds, all of them would be
15 to 25%.
would be funding at about 75 to 80%.
75 to 85%, that's correct.
75 to 85%.
Except Salvation Army, which is 100%.
Which we took to 100%.
Which was
CASP
the smaller.
as well.
And then,
CASP is 100% too, I'm sorry. The reason I did CASP 100% because for adding each school, their cost was almost 12,000, if I'm not mistaken.
right.
So that's why I did
So
the
that
largest.
gets them into an additional
So
school.
If not, there's no, might as well don't give them anything. If not, they won't be able to do their program without having full funding. So those two are 100%, the rest are 85 to 75% funded, will be funded. That's my suggestion. I did a lot of changes in numbers, but
Are you good? Oh, you're asking me? I'm thinking.
oh,
You can move front and don't wait for me.
Studying it for a second.
just like if you want specific numbers, for example, the Glendale Youth Alliance gets 83% funding from what they asked for. That's the column you guys don't have.
Can you give us the percentages that you figured?
Yeah, 83% for Glendale Youth Center, 100% for Salvation Army. Let me see, I gotta make sure I have the lines directly. Okay, 75%, no, sorry.
Sorry, you said Glendale Youth Center.
Sorry,
You meant,
sorry,
you
yeah,
meant
I
the
have the, okay.
Glendale
it's
Youth
also-
Alliance.
Yeah, Glendale Youth Alliance, 83%. Salvation Army, 100%. Catholic Charities, 75%. CASP's 100%. Ascensia, 66%. All for Health, 65%. Housing Rights Center, 75%. And Armenian Relief Society, 85%. There we go. There's a column.
I would,
Yeah, I just didn't hear the percentages.
You want me to put what he's put in there?
Yes, if you could just run a formula what they're funded so that they could see it up there. So as they change the number, it'll show what the percentage funded is. So if we just take the column F divided by column
No.
D.
No, column G divided by,
Am I looking at the wrong column?
column G
Oh,
divided
G,
by
I'm sorry, column G divided by
D.
D. Yes.
D.
D, yes.
And then
There we
just
go,
copy it down.
85%, yeah. Yeah, the ones are the 100%.
If you highlight them all and then hit the little percentage, it'll just convert it for you. Just highlight H, column H, and then hit the little percent. There we go. Thank you.
Now we know who the Excel master is.
She's the master of it.
Can you go left so we can see the organizational names too, after you're done?
So you asked me to do what after?
See the names.
Scroll to the left so that we can see the names.
You can take the C, minimize the C, or
There we go. Thank you.
Well, I would like to see Catholic Charities and Armenian Relief funded at the same levels because they serve the people in most need and pretty much in line with our guidelines. And I don't know how you figure that, but
Well, you're talking about for the additional amount? Because right now they're like a couple $100 apart. 167.36, 17059.
yeah, but when you get back to what we funded in the past, we end up at 86% to 75%. So if you can just kind of even those out.
So you're talking about percentage, or you're talking about, because if you're saying get them both to a same percentage, then that's really completely reallocating. If you're talking about by a dollar amount, they're pretty close. They're within a couple $100 of each other.
one of the columns that I said from the year before to this year, Catholic Charities asked 40% increase from the year before in funding, and Armenian Relief Society asked 25% increase from the year before. So I consider that as well. So it was
But Catholic Charities returned funding also, so they got nothing.
That was on the capital side.
Yeah.
Return.
Yeah, that was on capital program, not on.
Yeah.
The social.
But that's why I'm
No,
just saying
that
I
was the
considered
Door of
other
Hope.
factors also.
Door of Hope did not apply.
Madam Chair, Committee Member Avedisian, this year, in this current fiscal year, Door of Hope returned funding, but Catholic Charities returned funding in last fiscal year.
No, sir.
But it was CIP funding.
But they were both CIP.
Both CIP.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
You don't want to add one more column. I just said from the year before.
I think I'm okay with most of them. Only a couple of them that I would rather see the fair housing program and All for Health. The totaling it's $5,500. I think I would rather give that to Catholic Charities. So adding to the 6,736, another 5,500. Okay, which I believe this every dollar will help them more to doing their projects, serving them, than the fair housing or all for help. And the amounts are very small. I'm sure they can manage, and especially all for health, they can manage to get their funding if they need to. So I would like to see the 5,500 from the fair housing and all for health go to Catholic Charities.
12,236.
Can we see what that looks like?
And it was from which projects, I'm sorry?
Number 2 and 3.
I'm sorry?
2 and 3 would be
Fair
0 to
housing
0.
and all for health.
I can support that.
That gets you closer to your percentages.
The lights were fixed right in
So even Essentia, the $2,000 is not going to make any impact on their program. I don't think that $2,000 really is going to make a difference. But if you look at it, if you even take that 2,000 and put it on the Salvation Army, I believe Salvation Army. Oh, no, Salvation Army, 100%. Sorry. Again, go back to Catholic Charities. I think even that extra $2,000 will
Very helpful.
go further than the Essentia will.
Why do you say that?
Because it's only
The
$2,000.
entire amount, the $2,000 for Essentia of the project, by the time they want to act on anything, the $2,000 on the staff numbers, I think, when the paperwork will be spent.
Is it separate paperwork, or is this just is the same paperwork is applied for the overall allocation that they already got?
It's overall.
Yeah. So that's not a correct statement in terms of the 2,000 paperwork.
And they're not here.
Yeah, that'll actually, I looked around on all three of them actually. So that would be my proposal if we're good.
Yeah, but you want to caution us not to be casting judgment based on things like that.
Things like what?
Whether they're here or not.
No, that's not. That's not.
It is, but I'm saying we should not be making a decision based on organizations whether they are here or not. They've all made presentations on all these programs that were substantial and exhaustive, and that's what we should be making the judgment on. You want to, obviously, it's a personal decision. You want to factor in whether or not they're here today. That's obviously every committee member's prerogative.
There's people here that were here today that didn't get anything.
Correct. All I'm saying is that I would not be basing my judgment of who gets these additional funds based on who showed up today.
No, definitely not. As you mentioned it, I said it, but that wasn't absolutely not my consideration. But where I'm looking at the numbers and where I think that every dollar, that small dollars in the whole, when we make the Catholic Charities in a larger dollar amount, that will definitely make a bigger difference than $2,000. And Essensia's work-wise, it's not going to make a major difference in the return results.
Sorry about that comment that it took you so long.
You put me in trouble.
It's not about that. I mean, you're giving a substantial amount to CASPs. They're not here either. So if you're going to use that standard, you would not be giving that amount. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'm just saying in terms of public input.
Correct.
Not what we didn't hear, but what we heard.
So I think, however, committee member Avedisian, I would say that if we're trying to concentrate some dollars so that we can have greater impact, that's something we've always talked about in our allocations, and so it does make sense to try and do that.
And I think that was a comment from the city council as well.
And that also gets you, by the way, to the same percentage funded compared to request between ARS and Catholic Charities, even though the increases were different, as Mr. Garipian noted.
Can we add one more column, or is too much work?
Sure. You want me to put another column?
Only if Deputy Director Alexanian gives the guidance.
I don't know if you can add the column, but that's fine. Just do a formula. I can't see the column number.
One that you hit, you have to unhide that one.
Oh,
The
I see.
17,
Yeah, unhide the C, the column C. So just do D divided by C.
By what?
Don't you have to take the difference?
Oh.
Requested 17, 18 minus.
No, I'm doing from the year before to the. So So column D divided by column C.
So that's to show percentage increase in request.
Right. Because I did consider different factors. Sorry, column C divided by column D is the other way around. There we go. I'll copy that. So this column gives us each agency from 2017 to 18, how many percent increase funding they requested. That also, I considered that before I gave the numbers, not just, so, for example, line 1, which if I'm not mistaken is Armenian Relief Society, requested 70, more like 24%, it's the other way around. It's not 76% increase, 24% increase.
31, 32, right? Because you're trying to do the difference between 17, 18, and 18, 19,
Right.
the percentage increase?
C and D.
Right.
C was 54,000 was in 17, 71,000 it's in
Right.
18. So the
So she would have to do the difference between
D and
D
C.
minus C divided by C.
Right. So that's why a 25% increase.
So do,
There we go.
but you got to put D minus C in parentheses and then divide it by C.
That's with today's funding, right?
Total asking. Divided by,
Divided by C.
there we go.
And then
31%.
copy it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, there was nothing in the year before, so put that 100%. There we go. So these are the percentage increases. So line 1, 31% increase from the year before.
In terms of
funding they asked
request.
for. As far as percentage. Like fair housing, they jumped 74% more funding than the year before. So this also gives us a direction of each agency, how much of a more funding they ask for. For example, CASPs, only 27% increase from the year before. But that also gives them 100% program
For a school.
For school. If you go last line, which is Glendale Youth Alliance, 32% increase. So you can tell how much more increase, but line 1, Housing Rights Center, line 2, 74% increase from the year before.
Even though the dollar amount is smaller.
Even the dollar amount is smaller, like from 11,000 to 20,000, it's only 9,000 difference or 8,500, but yet it's 74% jump asking for the year before. So I considered these numbers also before I gave my numbers to see how much of a percentage, but yet equally try to keep the other line, which is next to it, the first column.
And can you explain how, like, what were you weighing there? Meaning, if someone had a larger increase.
I'm just saying, if larger, I can say why larger? Is it a new program or just cost of living went up? I mean, you got to consider, but none of them I saw a new program that it's adding to the previous year. They're just asking more money,
right? And
pretty much the same programs, of course, enhancements, but not to the fullest. But for example, Armenian Relief Society, only 31%. I can understand the 31% is the overall inflation, all that stuff goes up, and the housing, and all that. But if I'm looking at Catholic Charities, it's 67% increase. Did a new program kicked in to have 67% increase?
More people.
Demand.
That's what I'm saying. So, but it's a bigger percentage. Or Essentia, 68% increase. I don't think they need 68% increase this year, to my knowledge, from their program, because it's the same program. Yes, more homelesses, obviously, so the demand is higher. So I didn't look at the dollar amounts, I looked at the percentages. So compared to how much higher they went, try to keep the balance to be fair to everybody. So I didn't, that's why I didn't give zero to anybody. I understand, Mr. Alvinesian, but I try to keep the balance and make sure everybody gets something versus zeros. But again, that's my.
Okay. The analyst, these guys with the numbers, remember?
Maybe we should keep these columns.
I'm okay with what Committee Member Avedisian proposed.
So I'll make a motion, you second?
Second.
Movement second. Roll call.
I apologize, I didn't hear who gave the second.
I second.
Thank you. Committee members Armenian,
Yes.
Avedisian,
Yes.
Caribbean,
Yes.
Kazarian is absent, Chair Ramirez.
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you want me to read the?
Motion passes 4-0.
No need to read the,
Go
Yes,
ahead.
Yeah.
go ahead,
Go.
I'm sorry,
read it.
read it? Okay,
Into the record.
I'll read it into.
You don't have to go into all the fancy percentages that Ms. Committee Member
Okay.
Garibian added, though.
I'll just read the total
I'm adding one more
recommendation.
column next year.
Community Outreach Program, Armenian Relief Society of Western USA, Inc., $61,309. Fair Housing Program, Housing Rights Center, $11,500. Gift Program, All for Health, Health for All, $15,000. Homeless Outreach Case Management, Ascensia, $20,000. Intervention, Prevention, Clinical Group Counseling, Tasks, $48,085. Loaves and Fishes Program, Catholic Charities of Los Angeles, Inc., $46,486,000. The Zone, the Salvation Army, $25,000. Youth Employment Program, Glendale Youth Alliance, $50,500.
Very good.
Motion carries.
We're done, right?
We do have oral communications under item 3. We don't have any
I don't
cards.
have any cards.
And under item 4, we have committee staff comments.
Committee comments? Members?
I just want to obviously first thank the staff. They do a great job every year and every time. I know it's too much work even for $1,000, but we know it's for a perfect cause and it's going to the right place. So thank you, and thanks to my colleagues, and hopefully next year we get a lot more funding. I hope so. My fingers crossed.
And to give a few staff comments, if I may, Madam Chair, committee members, your CDBG recommendations are going to be published on the city's website in a few days. A public hearing is scheduled for June 14th at Pacific Park Community Center at 7 p.m. regarding the recommendations you've made today. And CDBG recommendations will go before City Council on June 19th. And we will reconvene after Council makes recommendations tentatively set for August, late August. We will meet again as a committee. So thank you very much, and thank you for understanding these very unique circumstances.
Thanks for finding the money.
Yes. We will commit to come back again if you find more money. So we gladly will come
We
down.
never used to find money under Moises. I just wanted to say that for the record.
Yeah.
You guys need to?
19 council.
Meeting's adjourned.
Yes.
Thank you.
Move. Thank you. Thank you.